Alright, hopefully I can make this one a little more quaint. So I tried to I tried to record this one. It didn't work. Also, the cat kept coming in and he meowed up a storm. I couldn't even focus. I kept just going, what was I talking about again? Okay, so here we go. Animal Collective. Obviously, freak folk, neo-psychedelic, group from Baltimore, and man, what an imprint they've put on the scene. And 23 releases, because I'm doing all the EPs and everything. None of the live stuff will be included, and you know, the Bandcamp only releases the bootlegs. There's a remix EP. I've got some of the singles, obviously not those. So we're gonna try our best here. I say this always, but it's really hard to rank a group you like this much, you know, because even this one, number 23, it's decent, but it's not bad. So anyway, I mentioned this one in a vinyl update episode. So this came out this year. It's the most recent, but it's also last place because it's a soundtrack and it's very unobtrusive as a soundtrack. It's the only Animal Collective released to be Deakin and Geologist, the credited players. Usually Animal Collective is like a trio or a quartet, and if they are a duo, Avery Tare is always involved, and Panda Bear is pretty much always there. What a great rhyme. So, yeah, so this came out on Domino Records, soundtrack to Chris Stone. I would love to see it to see how it goes into the movie, but as its own thing, you know, it's pretty inconsequential. I don't think I'd recommend it to anything but a hardcore fan. Number 22 is Keep, plus Animal Collective, or just Keep. So this cassette was given away if you bought a pair of their shoes through the Keep website, and I kind of wish I did. But I don't remember liking the shoes all that much. But now the collector in me is like, well, you should have bought it to get the cassette release. And the cassette's interesting because one track is done by each member. So there's 4 tracks, 1 per band member. And Country Report is definitely the highlight for me, the Deakin song. But the Panda Bear one, Preakness, that one's cool too. And he re-recorded it later and he put it out on another release, and it's come up in the Tomboy era, the Meets Grim Reaper era. Number 20 is Transverse Temporal Gyrus. So this is about 45 minutes of a 6-hour Guggenheim kind of audio-visual exhibition thing. Very interesting, very experimental. And this is unopened because my friend and I rushed out on record store day to go get it, and we played his copy at my house when we got it home. And that day, the night before record store day, it became available as like a not a bootleg, but as a FLAC with all the stems and everything, and you could kind of recreate the whole randomness of the actual exhibition, and it kind of all rendered this release pointless. And it was like, I think there were like 6 hours of just music and sounds, and you could mix it all together, and every time you'd play it, it would be different. It was a very interesting experiment and experience, and I remember kind of playing with it all week, and you know, listening to it that way, and I never unwrapped the record in the end, so I don't know if there's ever really a reason to. Number 20 is going to be the Prospect Hummer EP, which is hiding down here. So Prospect Hummer, that's Animal Collective with Vashti Bunyan, who of course did a very, not popular, but very acclaimed record in 1970. And she was, don't call her a folk singer, because she doesn't like that, she's a pop singer. But she is a folk singer. So she does kind of folky singing and material, and she joins the boys on this. They pretty much brought her out of a 34-year retirement to do this. And the next year she put something out. So you can kind of credit Animal Collective and it was 35 years between her debut and her sophomore record. Surprisingly, though, the highlight for me is Baleen Sample, which is a Geologist instrumental. I would love to get this on vinyl, and it is available again. It was available at the time, but kind of became harder to get as time went on, and they reissued it this record store day. And it's not really all that expensive, but I wasn't able to go to record store day because I never am. Like I just said, for the prior release I was there, but in the last 5-6 years it's so hard to get there. It's so expensive. I always work on Saturday, and man, the resells on Discogs for record store day releases are absolutely atrocious and insane. And I cannot stand that part of record store day. It's just people flipping records. The record stores are the ones that lose out. It's actually the record companies just being greedy. So number 19 is Animal Crackbox, as I drop my notes. And this is somewhat of a compilation, but I'm putting it in because pretty much none of this is available on any of the albums, and the ones that are available kind of in different forms, like Halite, Two Sails, Young Prayer, even though that's more Panda Bear, De Soda de Son from Campfire Songs. But yeah, there's some good stuff like Jimmy Raven, Jungle Heat, Good Country, that version, Iko Ovo. Very cool art, very unlike anything else the band put out. Kind of reminds me of Cuphead or all those old cartoons from decades and decades and decades ago, like Felix the Cat and stuff like that. Yeah, wouldn't recommend this to anyone who's just trying to check out the band or who've heard Merryweather and wonder where to go to next. This came out the same year as Merryweather, I believe, but don't check it out if you like Merryweather, the pop stuff and the Beach Boys influence and all that. But if you're a hardcore fan and, wonder what's next, check it out. I mean, I like it enough. I was thrilled to finally get this. It's always intrigued me. And yeah, it's very loud, noisy, abrasive. Some of the live stuff is recorded on mini discs, so you can't get much lo-fi than that. But even though it kind of sounds like garbage, it kind of matches some of that material. Not to call the material garbage, but it's supposed to be kind of like lo-fi or whatever. So there's that. Make sure those records don't fall over. And then next up is going to be... It's almost kind of a scramble to do these big discographies because, yeah, there's just so much. So next up is going to be People. That's 18. People, of course, for me, it's all about the title track, People. It's got such a nice build-up. It's very of its era, like it's very feels. And then it, of course, all culminates with, Toyboat, with Avery Tare going, People! And, man, that guy's gotta yell. It works so well for all this older material. But a lot of people like Tickweed. I think that's a lot of people's, a lot of people go, that's one of my favorite AC songs. And it's good, but, I probably wouldn't put it in my top 50 or even 100 from this awesome band. My favorite Colors is decent. It's not as good as Tickweed, and the live version of People isn't on every iteration, but I think Avi kind of goes a little off base on that, but the studio version makes this rank higher. I really don't think it should be ranked higher than Animal Crackbox, but I really love the studio version, and I really love this era of the group. And of course, this would be great to have on vinyl too, and of course it was issued on vinyl at the time, but now it's been issued with this all airbrushed out because it's become kind of a problematic cover, and so they want to kind of erase that from history. But I would love to own it on the old original one or the new one. I don't care. Either way, I would love to have a vinyl copy of this. And the CD is pink, which doesn't happen very often in my collection because I'm not a guy that was, collecting Britney Spears records. So that's going to be that. And then next up is going to be which I also talked about on a vinyl update video, Bridge to Quiet. So this is very, it's kind of the opposite of Merryweather and Painting With. It's not pop oriented. It's kind of, a little ambient, a little murky. Don't mean that in a bad way at all. Piggy Nose is definitely kind of the earworm, and was the one that a lot of the blogs and stuff were talking about. But I think Rain in Cups and the title track are probably the standout. But these are all solid, at least 4 out of 5 songs. Like, it's really good. But if you're checking out AC, I would probably recommend that to get to that later on. Maybe visit all the main event albums first. Number 16 is the very interesting Meeting of the Waters project. This is Avery Tare and Geologist, and it's kind of Avery Tare's kind of strummy acoustic stuff that he does solo, and he did back with the Campfire Songs and stuff. But it's with a lot of rainforest kind of field recordings, and Geologist is playing with recordings of rain and the Amazon, and they really heighten these songs and kind of take them next level. And it's just crazy to me that Man of Oil has become so huge, because it seemed like, other than hardcore Animal Collective fans, people weren't really talking about that one. And then years later, it seems like it's one of the most streamed Animal Collective songs. A lot of people say that song's too good for the rest of the album, but as a whole, it's a really good album. It's just, you have to be patient with the rest, because it's not as sing-songy as Man of Oil, and maybe a little more ambient and meditative. But there's a time and a place for that, to go with your noisy AC and your poppy AC. So number, 15? Man, Holland Again, live album. None of the material off this made any of the records, so it kind of felt like the third, was it at the time? Third Animal Collective record. And of course, this came right after Dance Manatee, and was it Deakin already by that point? Anyway, the labeling is all like stuff from the venue and the show or whatever, like Animal Collective and Gang Gang Dance, and Animal Collective and Black Dice. Yeah, so Deakin's actually in the group by this point, and yeah, it's just very loud, abrasive, kinetic, if you went to go see a show, you could be in an audience of 20. It's nice that this era is actually documented, because for a lot of bands, their kind of grassroots eras aren't well documented, but they even got a live record out during this era. So this is unfortunately not like an original pressing or anything. It's the '06 re-release, but I was just happy to get this on anything. So next up is going to be The Painters. Yeah, that's not the cover. This is the cover. The cover's for me not as poppin' as the main event Painting With, but the actual songs, like Kinda Bonkers, I think might be the best thing from this era of Animal Collective. I think if they actually put that on Painting With, it might have been the best song there. And Jimmy Mac is a great cover. I really like that one. But the two songs in between, while being good songs, I do think that they do kind of sound like B-sides, whereas the two songs, the bookends, are just amazing. Like, they're incredible Animal Collective. And then, of course, saying that, here's the actual main event studio album, and really the last true studio album of Animal Collective, and it's been 5 years now. But thankfully, we've received a wealth of live release as soundtracks, EPs, solo works. Like, they're no slouches, this group, but it's really weird to think that this is the last main event Animal Collective LP, and that it was panned, and people didn't like it, and I got the Noah variant, or aka Panda Bear variant. There were 3 different variants with all members of the group at the time outlined. Deakin was, again, not in the group. He really goes in and out. And yeah, a lot of people, this is one of the most slighted, savagely critiqued Animal Collective records. This one, though, for me, it has a big place in my heart. It came out in a time of my life that was difficult, and that month in particular was, and having such a poppy, happy release from one of my favorite groups of all time, like, I didn't even notice. I was rocking this thing all the time. I loved it. And even though, you know, it's not my favorite Animal Collective record, and it wasn't even at the time, like, it'll always have a place in my heart, like I said, and I'll always think very highly, especially of songs like Hocus Pocus. Hocus Pocus, that one's really fun. Vertical. Oh, there's a really bad bend in the thing. Floridada, which is one of their most catchy, fun songs of all time, in my opinion, and featured in the movie Waves, which is one of the most interesting movies I've seen in the last 5 to 10 years, easily. And Recycling, would have been great to see them on tour for this. They were dropping Alvin Rowe into the proceedings, and it was the three of them, no Deakin, like I said, but they had the drummer from Avery Tare's Slasher flicks, and yeah, I watched some live performances on YouTube at the time, and was like, wow, I'd love to go to one of those shows. Thankfully, I have seen the group a couple times. Okay, number 12 is going to be Tangerine Reef, which is a hard one to recommend because you have to play it front to back. It's Haircutter was kind of the single or whatever, and that one kind of works on its own, but the rest you kind of have to listen to in order. There's a lot of kind of non-song songs, I guess, for lack of a better word. There's a lot of kind of transitions and ambient stuff and instrumentals, but I think if you watch it with the underwater stuff, visuals and documentary, that heightened this even more for me. But I do think it works as an album. Like, it's just different. And, I mean, the group's always done that and experimented. And I would liken it sort of to Oddsac in that, you know, it works front to back, it works with some visual aspect, but Oddsac they never put out on vinyl or as its own release, so I couldn't really put it in here because the only way to hear the audio without the DVD or watching the movie is to, you know, find bootlegs of it, which I have, and if they ever decided to put it out on vinyl, they should do that for like a record store day or something, because unlike this one, I actually much prefer Oddsac without the movie aspect, and it has one of my favorite tracks, Mr. Fingers, off it, and has never been released in any capacity except for on the movie, but that's straying from the point a little bit, which is what I do. Number 11 is Water Curses EP, which comes right between two amazing eras, of course, Strawberry Jam in 07 and Merryweather in 09. And yeah, obviously the title track is amazing, but you really got to check out stuff like Cobwebs and Street Flash. And thankfully, I do hear a lot of people saying, like, Street Flash is one of the best AC songs of all time, or, you know, Cobwebs is top 10 for me, or this and that and the other. Seal Eyeing's pretty cool too. But yeah, just 4 really great songs there. And, you know, they were really at the height of their powers at the time. Going back to the CD pile. Campfire Songs, which was just put under Campfire Songs. It doesn't say Animal Collective or Avery Tare or anything. Ooh, doesn't focus at all. Oh yeah. This has some of the most beautiful Animal Collective stuff on it. It's relaxing. Some people have said it's boring, but I think that it's beautiful. And some of it sounds kind of sad. Moo Ra Ra Rain and De Soto de Sun are probably my 2 favorites off here. But Queen in My Pictures into Doggy, I mean, also amazing. Just all 5 songs are, but Moo Ra Ra Rain and De Soto de Sun are just meditative, beautiful, relaxing. I remember when I finally picked this up, just falling asleep to it, and I mean that in a good way. I'd put it on, and most music I can't put it on and fall asleep to. I'm just too focused on the music and what's coming next. But this, I mean in a good way, was a great record to fall asleep to back in the day. And you know, now I don't play it like that, but you know, I've heard it front to back many times, and really love it. And I remember waking up to it and just feeling calm and not, you know, anxious about anything. Number 9 now, Dance Manatee, which is one of their noisiest productions. Just noisy, abrasive, lots of weird low-end stuff going on. It's hard to say like any highlight because I think it begs to be played front to back. For me, the highlight, I guess, is Good Country, but yeah, the rest is so experimental and weird, and the only travesty of this is some cool songwriting is kind of buried under the production because you can't really hear what they're singing a lot of the time. But that's kind of how it's supposed to be. But if you want to read the lyrics, you can find them. And then a couple of these songs went on to be interpolated with Strawberry Jam stuff, like, well, it was Fireworks both times, but Esplode and, I always mess this up, Lo Blakely Dress? Yeah, so anyway, those two. And they work really well interpolated with that great song, and they would stretch it out to be a 17-minute jam or an 18-minute jam, and man, some of the most incredible live work from the band, and that's saying a lot. So next up is going to be Fall Be Kind, and you know, talking about how great this band is at EPs and how great all their EPs are, but this is one of my favorite EPs of all time from any band. Right up there with like Slow Dive EPs and stuff. Yeah, they really did this one. This one's incredible. And it came out in '09, so same year as Merryweather. Starts with Graze, which used to be called Grace, and that kind of starts off like, let me begin, all dreamy and ethereal, and then it kind of goes into a more pop bend, and then it ends with a kind of a pan flute jam, and it's really fun and frantic and happy. And seeing that live before this came out was great. That song, and they played What Would I Want Sky at the time too, which puts in a Grateful Dead sample from Unbroken Chain. Classic record. Off one of my favorite Grateful Dead EPs, LPs. And What Would I Want Sky is the same. It kind of, the second half is very different from how they started. Love the drumming. Bleed was played a lot live. I Think I Can is one of my favorite Panda Bear jams, whether that's with the group or without. It's definitely one of my favorite Panda Bear fronted ones. Yeah. The only slight I have on this one, and it's very small, if I hadn't heard bootlegs prior to, I wouldn't have even known this, because I don't think they even did this live when I saw them, but they dropped the whole he did what with who, he went where part of Graze. So I really like that. He did what with who, he went where. Sung Tongs, of course. Sung Tongs is just Avery Tare and Panda Bear. Sung Tongs is for me, the introduction to the group. Leaf House I found on a blog that unfortunately doesn't exist anymore, so I can't give them credit. But they posted some MP3s, and they usually did 4 or 5 a post, all from different bands. And I remember they did Islands, Rough Gem, and Animal Collective Leaf House in that post. And so I discovered 2 great groups, and one which would become one of my favorite groups of all time. This is '07. So right after I heard Leaf House and kind of went, huh? The first time I went, huh? But I want to hear that again. So I played it again. I said, okay, all right. I want to hear that again. And then I thought, man, this is actually really cool compositionally, and the way that Panda and Avery Tare kind of complement each other, and, you know, Panda Bear's kind of singing, and then Avi is doing those like crazy sounds out of his mouth. And then as soon as I heard that, I saw, I guess it was a related post or something, Panda Bear, and Panda Bear is coming out with a new record, and Panda Bear this, and I went out and got it. This is a month or two later. It finally was ready to come out, and it came out. I got it the day it came out, and that's what made me a fan. And then Animal Collective were gearing up for Strawberry Jam, so that's how the whole love affair started. But it all started with Leaf House, and then going to Panda Bear, and then coming back again. Winter's Love, of course, is one of the most beautiful, talking about the Campfire Songs thing, but yeah, Winter's Love is one of the most beautiful Animal Collective songs. Kids on Holiday is probably my favorite one, and Avi and Panda went out to tour this a few years ago, and for me the compositions even popped more. I don't think they went outside of the States. I didn't get to see them, unfortunately, but I think on YouTube you can still watch some of the shows, and there's some bootlegs, and they did the whole thing front to back, and wow, it really brought to light just how brilliant this album was. And like, there's a lot of youthful energy on it, but man, they were just masters, I gotta say. So dropping everything. After Sung Tongs, number 6 is Centaurehertz, which actually goes this way up. And this is a very polarizing release from right after their commercial kind of breakthrough. It took them 3 years to follow it up. Luckily there were EPs and tons of tours in between there. Yeah, unfortunately, you know, critics really panned it quickly. I think people should have just given it more listens. When I heard it the first time, I thought, wow, this is great. But then the second time, more and more stuff kind of revealed itself to me. And then the third time and fourth time, and this was by far my most played record of that year. And even now when I listen to it, I swear I'm hearing things that I didn't hear before. But it sounds like aliens, it sounds like a space transmission. And it's supposed to, but I think that polarized a lot of people. And but even though the production is so busy, there's a lot of great pop hooks here. They didn't lose the pop hooks from Merriweather to here. Like, these are catchy songs and very well written. And Deacon gets a lead on Wide Eyed, which is not a very common thing for him in the group, though he did prove himself with his solo record. But Wide Eyed is one of my favorite Animal Collective songs. Today's Supernatural is just insane and frantic and kinetic, as is Monkey Riches. Mercury Man has that great sample in it. Newtown Burnout, yeah, the Panda Bear stuff is absolutely amazing. He was drumming for the group again. Seeing them live in this era was absolutely stellar. We saw them outside. I wish we saw them in a better venue, but it was so fun to see Panda behind the kid and Deacon doing his thing on guitar again for the first time in a while, and dancing and having fun on stage. Great era. Superb album. I don't really care what people say. Number 5 is going to be Here Comes the Indian, which is you know, kind of the last really noisy thing they did, I guess. Native Bell into Hey Light is one of the best moments in their discography, in my opinion. There's lots of kind of unsettling stuff on this record, but yeah, I really like it. I think it's one of the best records of its kind, for sure. Like, I don't know if you'd call this noise rock or what you're actually supposed to call it, but yeah, I've really found it really enjoyable. And you get a shirtless Deacon and a young geologist on the back sneaking through the woods, and I guess that's Panda Bear, dressed as a panda bear. But where's Avery Tare? I always wondered, like, yeah, anyway. So, number 4 we're finally almost there. Feels, one of the most loved Animal Collective records, and I can totally see why. Did You See the Words? What an opener. These songs are kind of happy, Avery Tare in love, innocence, romance, loss of innocence. it's all covered in these songs. It's so well composed. It's so well written. Grass is one of the catchiest things they ever put out. Despite having a shouted chorus, it's so catchy. Pow, pow, now, now. Purple Bottle, I love the version that interpolates the Stevie Wonder thing, but this version is incredible too. Bees is meditative and great. Banshee Beat is one of the best things they ever did, and has such a cool progression to it, and just unfolds slowly and patiently, and one of their best songs. What a great album. You know, for a lot of groups, this could be their greatest album, but when you're talking AC, well, I guess there's stuff I like even more. But yeah, this is a lot of people's favorites, and I can see why. Or favorite, not favorites. Okay, so number 3 now. Let's get in it. Number 3 for me is going to be Spirit They're Gone, Spirit They Vanished. One of my favorite debuts of all time. And really, technically, this is Avery Tare, a solo record, but it's billed as Avery Tare and Panda Bear, which just started Animal Collective. And, you know, now it's billed as Animal Collective. People think of it as Animal Collective. It started the whole thing. But for the first few releases, they were releasing them as Avery Tare and Panda Bear, Avery Tare, Panda Bear and Geologist, Avery Tare, like that. They weren't called Animal Collective yet. But yeah, it starts off with a song that loses a lot of people, but I find it's fascinating, and it's so noisy, and some people can't take it, but I think it's super intriguing, and I don't know, there's just something about it. It just sounds like a dream. April in the Phantom is more of a, nothing on here is poppy because the production isn't poppy at all. There's kind of this, I guess, is it high-end? Weird high-end stuff going on. But April in the Phantom is, sung and written like a pop song. Penny Dreadfuls is also one of my favorite things the band has done. Chocolate Girl, Alvin Rowe, one of the best finishers of all time. Like, I don't care what genre we're in or anything. It's a absolute favorite. There's a magic to this record. I don't know. They were so youthful. Avery Tare was, writing it. He was living in New York. He was scared and lonely, but somehow they crafted an absolute masterpiece. And there's just this youthful magic in it. I don't know. It's hard to put into words, but it really started a wondrous career, in my opinion. Number 2, Merriweather Post Pavilion, which has nothing to do with the venue or anything, and they hadn't even performed there yet, but they remedied that years later, finally. And, it's a trippy illusion, which doesn't seem to be working very well right now. But whenever I go to the, release page on Discogs or something, it's like, ooh, it still works. What an exciting time to be an Animal Collective fan when the whole world was latching onto this group. And, for some that would be kind of annoying, and My Girls got really overplayed. But for me, it will remain a classic song. I never really got tired of it. It's so catchy. The Panda Bear stuff I really latched on to, like Daily Routine, Guy's Eyes, and aforementioned My Girls. So well written, so catchy. The Avery Tare stuff, the collaborative stuff, it's all point for point, like pound for pound, some of the best stuff the group ever did. One of the greatest openers in the Flowers. Brother Sport, open up your, so catchy. The only slight I have against that is there's not enough yelling at the end. The old bootlegs and live version, he was going, ah, ah, and then this he's like, woo, woo. But some people might prefer that, and maybe they thought, oh, the yelling doesn't go with the poppiness of this record. But in the Flowers, Summertime Clothes, Also Frightened, Bluish, and when your worst song is Lying in a Coma, in my opinion, the one with the didgeridoo and the clever play on words. That's the low point, and that song's even great. I love it. And No More Running, I always liked, but a decade after this came out, I thought, wow, that's a really brilliant song, and the way they harmonize and the composition, I thought, I liked that when it came out or whatever, but I think years of music appreciation and stuff, and 10 years of thinking about it and listening to it, it really, I liked it even more. So it's a classic. It's one of the best things that came out in the 2000s, in my opinion. So many good memories with this album and the tour and listening to the album and absolutely everything. And then finally, it's the one that made me discover the group, and it's still my favorite one, I gotta say. I come back to it very often. It sounds so fresh. Starts with Peacebone, which goes absolutely ham right out of the gate. The Chores with Panda Bear. Fireworks, one of my favorite things they ever did. As for Reverend Green, also one of my favorite, with that build-up. For Reverend Green, and then for Reverend Green. I wish I could yell like Avi. I could make a whole music career out of it. He has one of my favorite yells in music, I gotta say. Number One, which is absolutely insane. Like a lot of people listen and they can't even comprehend. They go, what is going on? And that meme, woman singing, man speaking backwards or whatever. Why they performed that on the Conan show or whatever show that was to promote the record, I have no idea, because everyone at home's probably watching their TV going, what the hell's going on here? Like, what are these guys doing? But I gotta say, Number One is probably in my top 3 or 4 of this record. I love that song. It works so well for me. Winter Wonderland is it's probably my favorite short song from the group. I just love that chorus. If you don't believe in fantasy, you don't believe in fantasy. If you not believe in fantasy, because it gets you down. And Derek, what a closer. And there were a couple of ones I didn't even mention, but to me, I said it about Merriweather, but this is one of my favorite of the 2000s. They had such a good run in that decade, and still the group's fascinating to me, but this is how I discovered them. I think it might always be my favorite. I'm not sure. I think this group's top 6 or 7, I mean, those are all stellar. What a group. What else can you say? I don't know. I just don't know. I just can't wait to see what they do next, and if some of the bootlegs from the last 2-3 years ever become anything in studio and all that. But for now, just be thankful with what I have, and I have this group in my life, and they're amazing. So, if you've heard them all, feel free to rank them, but holy, what an undertaking, and you can just tell me your favorite songs if you don't want to do that. But thanks for watching, everyone, and this is a long one.